Bakuten, or Backflip, is an anime about men's rhythmic gymnastics. It was released in 2021. It's got one season with 12 episodes and a sequel movie that's about an hour and a half. The show starts with our main character, Shotaro Futaba. Don't come at me for my pronunciation. He's basically like this average Joe. He's played a lot of different sports, and he's never necessarily been bad at any of them, but he's never been good enough to like be anything more than a bench warmer. He's kind of lost, doesn't really know what he wants to do, just goes with the flow kind of thing. But due to a combination of coincidences, he stumbles upon an MRG competition where he immediately falls in love and decides that's what he wants to do. So the show is about him, part of an MRG club, the same club who inspired him to play the sport. I feel like the first episode of this series was incredibly impactful. It had great exposition and even hints at some plot points that are touched on later in the series. Despite the animation being good, it does combine CG in the performances, and in the first half of the series, it is very jarring to me. It doesn't flow very well. I got used to it, obviously, but like in the first episode, it definitely felt a little bit of a jump scare because I wasn't ready for it. What I think is really interesting about this aspect, though, is that later on in the series, and in the movie especially, we see a lot of improvement as you start to see more of a mix between the CG and the animation, so it looks more fluid when put together, which I think is really fun. Another thing to add in regards to the animation or the cinematography of it is that in the later half of the series, as well as in the movie, there's an interesting use of like a fisheye view during the performances, and I thought it was really interesting and it made it fun to watch. I enjoyed many of the characters in the series, especially the second and third years on the team. Each had their strengths and their weaknesses, and then their interesting little hobby or niche interests that made them very amusing. Even the coach had an interesting personality and an intriguing backstory. However, I felt like there were a few characters that kind of fell flat for a couple of different reasons. One example would be the manager of the team. She's got such a cute design and she is really funny whenever she does have speaking lines, but for the most part of the series, it does feel like she's just part of the background, which kind of sucks because I feel like she had an opportunity to have more of a presence in the show. And I get it, she's not the main character and she's not the main focus of the show, but if you're going to have someone be there in all of these scenes, like I feel like it should mean something. Another character I feel like fell kind of flat is unfortunately the main character. And it's because despite being the main character, it feels like he's constantly outshined by these other characters. I'll touch more on why this is a little bit later, so just put a pin in it, keep it in the back of your brain while I keep going. When it comes to conflict in this show, it feels like there's never any real stakes. For instance, for a majority of the series, there is a lot of internal struggles from different characters, but it feels like they're easily brushed over, and the solution to each of these problems is either sheer determination or more practice or a combination of both. There is no real communication during these times of internal struggle between the team members, and the only person who really knows what's going on is the coach, and even then he gives very vague advice, allowing these kids to kind of come up with the solution on their own. But as the viewers, I feel like we don't get to see the internal wheels of their mind reaching this resolve. We don't see how they get from point A to point B. It's just they're struggling, and then all of a sudden, newfound optimism. It feels disappointing. But the thing that bothers me most is that there is so much room for them to expand on these internal struggles, to show character development, to show character growth, to show the team building trust in each other and being able to talk to each other and seeing them deepen these relationships with each other. And given the character's background with his inability to be really great at any of these other sports, it feels like there could have been a complex about that, and there could have been conflict stemming from that and how he overcomes that and how he grows confident. And don't get me wrong, he has character growth, he does become confident, but it feels so passive, it's subtle and barely focused on. Another instance of conflict is that there's an ace on the team and he kind of loses his title as the ace because the other first year that comes in with our main character is this super talented guy who's won like many awards, and the solution to the conflict was just so dissatisfying. There could have been a real show of inferiority, an argument, an established rivalry, and I guess there sort of was, but again, it felt passive. The solution felt one-sided, his resolve felt weak. It just felt very disappointing and just wish-washy. In the movie, however, it did feel like there was more of a central conflict to focus on that involved real resolve and a real physical solution to a problem. It also felt like there was more of a central theme. It felt like in the series, it was just kind of following them on their journey, no real focusing on theme. And I guess there was some focus on the main character and how he starts to believe in himself. But again, wish-washy, passive, barely focused on. Like, I had to go back and really think about what could have been the theme to really have that click in my mind personally. It wasn't super clear from the get-go. In the series, we following them in their journey to get to Inter High, and it's not until the later parts of the series that we really see them kind of explore what they hope to gain from all of their time doing men's rhythmic gymnastics. And what they decide is that they want to inspire others. And that desire, that dream, that goal that they share is more focused on in the movie. And in the movie, it also focuses on things like regret and change, which makes the movie more impactful because it feels like there are higher stakes in the movie. It feels like there's more to gain, more to be lost than in the series. It shouldn't feel that way given the circumstances of the series versus the movie, but that's how those themes made it feel. To me, anyways. If you can tell, I personally enjoyed the movie over the series. I think it's due to the fact that they had those central themes. There was more character growth. The conflict had higher stakes with real resolve. But even then, I still have a bit of a gripe with the movie because the character that was focused on the most, again, wasn't the main character. It was a different character. Just kind of makes you wonder why he's the main character if he's barely focused on like this. And this isn't the first time that he's just not at the center of attention. Like, he's constantly feels like a secondary character. Now, I know I gave it a lot of criticism, but I did really enjoy the show regardless. I enjoyed the show for what it was, but because I can see just what it could have been, it makes me feel disappointed. There was room for a way more impactful story, but it just fell short in a lot of different categories, which is kind of unfortunate. I would still recommend this to anyone who enjoys sports anime like Haikyuu or Free, but I would also recommend it to people who like slice of life anime like Rainbow Days. It's also a quick watch, so what do you really have to lose from a 12 episode anime and a 1.5 hour movie? You can finish it in like a week. Less than if you're really committed. I rate it 7 backflips. Now, this is my first time doing a review, so I'm not sure if I was too harsh. Again, like, I enjoyed it, and I hope that I got it across that I did enjoy the show, even though I had a lot of criticisms. It is a sports anime, it's labeled as such. I do find myself comparing it to Haikyuu and Kuroko's Basketball, which are longer series with room for more character growth, as well as more focus on the sports themselves. Like, there's a lot more focus on the practice matches and the games. And in Bakuten, it's just a 3-minute performance, so they can only show it so much. And it's the same performance, so it doesn't change besides like the mistakes. And even then, we only see the obvious ones. They talk about these small mistakes, but it's CG. They're all perfectly in sync, so I don't know what they're talking about. I feel like Bakuten would have benefited from a longer series, but that's just my opinion. These are all my opinions from one simple watch through, so please don't crucify me. That is my first anime review, 2024.